Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to the Global Matrix Readers Theater. And we are going to read about Fred Rogers. Mr. Rogers, our American neighbor. You can see we've already sort of assigned ourselves parts, and we're going to now share the screen. Here we go. And there's his magical kingdom of puppets. Actually in the introduction, there were so many things that I wanted to share that one of the things was actually about making puppets. And so here is some links in the introduction that tell you how to make different kinds of puppets and how to use them in storytelling. Links that will take you to his different sites, and I hope you will go and explore some of these things as well. But let's read the story of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Okay. So it starts with Fred.
You rarely have time for everything you want in this life, so you need to make choices. And hopefully, your choices can come from a deep sense of who you are.
Now, spell kingdom.
Kingdom.
K-I-N-G-T-O-M.
When I think it ought to be called a queendom.
Right.
Last word, spell neighbor.
Neighbor. You mean like who live next door?
Yes, like your friends next door.
Well, a neighbor isn't just someone who lives next door. We have friends who live in our neighborhood.
N-E-I.
You know, now when you think of a real neighbor, you can't help but think of Fred Rogers.
That's true. He was called America's best neighbor.
And to think that he has been dead like 18 years now?
Maybe, but what he stood for then is just as important now.
Wait a minute. I know who you are talking about. You are talking about Mr. Rogers. There is a movie they made about him called A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
We used to watch Mr. Rogers with your mother when she was a child. Came on every weekday afternoon. Your grandpa and mother would watch it while I was fixing dinner.
This is when both of
It's a beautiful
Beautiful
day
day
in the
in the
neighborhood.
neighborhood.
a beautiful
A
neighbor. Would
For
you
a
neighbor.
neighbor, would
Would you
you
be
be
mine?
mine?
Could you be
Could you be
mine?
mine?
The greatest gift you ever give is your honest self.
Fred was born in Pennsylvania town called
late?
Latrobe. Latrobe. His maternal grandfather founded the MC Philip Brick Company.
McFeely.
Max Philip Brick Company.
Good job.
Hey, that's the name of the speedy delivery service mailman on his show.
His family was very well off, but he learned at an early age what it meant to be one of the helpers. His mother, Nancy, was known for her generosity and giving to the people of their community.
When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping.
In fact, during the World War Fest, when she was only 14 years old, she knitted sweaters for the soldiers from Western Pennsylvania who were fighting in the war.
You know, she kept right on knitting. She made over 60 cardigans for Fred, one every year at Christmas. In fact, those were the sweaters he wore on TV.
I hope you're proud of yourself for the times you've said yes, when all it meant was extra work for you and was seemingly helpful only to someone else.
It's hard to believe that he had a hard time fitting in with his peers, but he was sure of a loner and the other boys could be very cruel.
But that's why he turned to reading, listening to music, and playing alone with his toys and puppets.
He was a good student in high school and was headed for the Ivy League Dartmouth College. Though he had everything all planned out, it did not take long for him to realize it was not the place for him.
Often, when you think you're at the end of something, you're at the beginning of something else.
He was miserable, but a music professor helped him find a place at the Music Conservatory of Rollins College in Florida.
Here was a place perfect for Fred, felt warm and friendly, where students had a sense of fun and good humor rather than pretending to be ma- macho.
Macho. Macho.
macho. It was an environment completely characterized by a love of music.
Fred loved Rollins and was able to use what he had learned from his McFeely grandparents and the Presbyterian church to which he belonged to good use.
He spent his youth figuring out who he was by bringing together the lessons he had learned from those resources.
Who we are in the present includes who we were in the past.
He began his work career at NBC to learn more about the TV business, with his focus now on helping children learn to deal with their feelings.
But then a group in Pittsburgh decided to start the first community-based public television station in the United States in the early 15s.
What a perfect opportunity for Fred! He knew that being an executive would not be a happy and fulfilling career.
The thing I remember best about successful people I've met all through the years is their obvious delight in what they are doing, and it seems to have very little to do with worldly success. They just love what they're doing and they love it in front of others.
He jumped at the opportunity to create informative programming for children and volunteered to produce daily content for WQED,
Mhm.
the small Pittsburgh station.
And that was the beginnings of the Children's Corner, which was the forerunner of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
In times of stress, the best thing we can do for each other is to listen with our ears and our hearts, and to be assured that our questions are just as important as our answers.
He also became a Presbyterian minister, feeling it would help him to better raise children.
Discovering the truth about ourselves is a lifetime's work, but it's worth the effort.
It was perfect. Who could combine his two guiding passions, music and spiritual teaching, to reach and help both parents and children through a fun, approachable, and creative environment.
You know, his show was such a huge success that only after a year on air with PBS, he was selected to speak at the pastor hearings in Washington, D.C.
This was in 1969. The Congressional Subcommittee was discussing whether PBS should continue receiving funding.
This is what I give. I give an expression of care every day to each child to help him realize that he's unique. I end the program by saying, you've made this day a special day by just your being you. There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are.
I'm supposed to be a pretty tough guy, and this is the first time I've had goosebumps for the last 2 days. Looks like you just earned the funding.
Mr. Rogers believed and proved time and time again that children did not want to have sugar-coated lessons. They want honesty and they wanted to belong.
Anything that's human is mentionable, and anything that is mentionable can be more manageable. When we can talk about our feelings, they become less overwhelming, less upsetting, and less scary.
You know, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood ran from 1968 to 2001. That's 33 years.
He dedicated his life to teaching children and their parents how to live life, having a neighborly influence on those around him.
And he was 74 years old when he died in 2003.
A huge difference in people's lives simply through his gesture, gestures of friendship, kindness, and love.
To this day, especially in times of disaster, I remember my mother's words, and I am always comforted by realizing that there are still so many helpers, so many caring people in this world.
Won't you
Won't
please,
you please,
Want to
won't
say,
won't
you
you
please,
please,
please won't you
please
be my
be
neighbor?
my neighbor?
neighbor? Ha ha ha. Well, we better be finish up that spelling list. Now, where were we?
Jeff, you need to unmute.
Neighbor, Neighbor, like Mr. Rogers.
You help to make each day a special day by just your being yourself. There's nobody else in the whole world who's exactly like you. And people can like you exactly as you are.
Thank you.
Thank you.